So we're going to continue now by using the pose tool to make some slight modifications to the front talons, and then we'll move on to the wings. So with the pose tool active, I chose the line selection mode to make modifications to this part of the model. The line mode will create a gradient selection between your first and your second point, and 3D Cut will use that first point as your pivot center. Just in case I haven't mentioned it previously, you can click on the elongated handle just above the pivot center in order to switch between the different transform modes. I'm now going to go back to the tool options panel. In the selection menu, I'm going to choose sphere. You may have already noticed that the inner widget will constrain your transform along the local axis. The outer widget is more for global transformations. When you are in translate or move mode with this gizmo, you can use the outer widget to move it freely in screen space. Now going to use the move tool in order to just finesse it a little bit with a brush. Okay, I think we're ready now to move on to creating the wings. The first thing I need to do is create a new blank layer. I'll double click on it to name it. And I'll now scroll down to the primitives tool, choose free patch, and then choose from a number of preset control points. I'll choose 4x4, and then I'll also check transform whole lattice so that I can scale the entire patch with a standard transform gizmo first. Get it moved into place and rotated in the proper orientation. Then we'll switch to a freeform lattice. And go to a side profile. May adjust the thickness up a bit, about 10. Uncheck transform whole lattice and just click individual points to try and move them into place. Switch back to an orthographic top view. And I'm going to create these wings in 3 actual segments rather than one large one. Rotate around the side to get a better vantage point. Come out of orthographic view into perspective by hitting the 5 key on the number pad. While I continue tweaking some of these points, I'm going to increase the speed of the playback in order to try and keep this video as concise as possible. And What I'm simply doing here is not only trying to intersect the wing with the front limb, but I also want to introduce some natural curvature here. And by the way, you can hover over an edge and use that to move multiple points if you need. Or you can hover over the center of a polygon and click that, and again that will move 4 points at the same time. Okay, I think we've tweaked that enough. We're ready to commit it by hitting the Apply button. Now I can just select another tool and inspect the result. Looks good for now. We can always use the Pose tool to go back and make some further adjustments if we need. Use the Pinch tool to sharpen the ends here. Use Smooth All. Rather than scrolling through the tool panel, I'm going to hit the space bar to bring the tools directly to my cursor, and in this case I chose the Move tool to do a little bit more tweaking right here in this area. Hold down the Shift key to smooth a little bit. And I think I'll go back to the pinch brush once more in order to crease the edges just a little bit. Go back to the Move tool. So I think we're about ready to create the other additional segments. Okay, so let's now go back to the Primitives tool, and we'll create our second segment in a similar fashion, except this time we'll use a patch of 3x3 control points. I'll choose Transform Whole Lattice. I'll uncheck Transform Whole Lattice and just move some of these points around. I'll recheck Transform Whole Lattice to move this into place, and I'm going to layer it beneath the initial segment. We're now going to create a new layer for this segment, and I'm going to hit the Enter key or the Apply button to commit it to a voxel layer. And I'm just going to reuse this particular primitive, and reshape it for the third segment. I think our overall shape is about right. Okay, let's go ahead and commit this now by hitting the Apply button. Scratch that. I actually need to create a new layer first before I do that. And I'll just go ahead and name these child layers while I'm at it. Select the appropriate layer and click Apply in the Tool Options panel. Alright, so I'm fairly happy with it thus far. I'm now going to hit my hotkey combination to bring up the Reference Image Options panel and just turn all of them off for the time being. And as I do a little bit of tweaking on these wings, using some of the sculpting brushes, the Move tool, and so on, I'm going to crank up the playback speed even more so we can keep this video flowing a little bit better without a lot of tedium. Switch to the Grow brush just to add a little bit of volume. I just switch layers there back to the initial segment. And I purposely made the other two segments a child of the wings layer. That way I can quickly hide just the entire group at once by clicking on the visibility icon of the parent layer. And at this stage, I'm just trying to do a little bit of sculpting in order to try and make the wings look like they mesh better with the front limb. I'm just going to continue doing a little bit more brushing and tweaking of the wings. Not a lot, but I'll go ahead and close the video at this point, and we'll pick up in the next one where we're going to construct the hind legs of this character. So stay tuned and thank you for watching.